It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. I find that I'm always fighting the temperature in my office, and it's true in both houses. Although the Florida house, because the office is on the north side of the house, I thought it's not going to get as much direct sun, so it won't get hot, but maybe it's at the end of the run. Maybe the vent is not big enough and more air, cold air goes somewhere else, and maybe I can adjust that. And of course, it's probably the fact that there are computers and monitors and other things making heat. So I'm already warm recording this in the morning, hoping to avoid the heat. But yet here I am in my office and it's toasty already. Coming up in this show, other than me just rambling on about the temperature of my office, I have a segment, an Investing Skeptically segment, that talks about how to get started. So if you don't have $500,000 or $2 million, what can you do with 1,000 and 5,000, 10,000, 50,000? Just some ideas. None of it, of course, is personalized investment advice. That's something totally different, but just ideas for you to kick around and try to create a plan for yourself. Also talk about how to adjust and or rebalance your portfolio, particularly if you just listen to the 6-part plan, the Polaris plan, and you're thinking to yourself, I want to do that. Well, how do I get there? So I have a whole segment on that coming up a little bit. And then later in the show, an interview with Helen Green, and she is going to talk to us all about recovering from religion, absolutely delightful organization, and what it does and what it doesn't do. And I hope you find that very, very informative. It probably won't surprise you that for the Florida house, I'm considering getting solar panels installed. The HOA, the Homeowners Association, has to approve any plan. But my understanding from a few Floridians is that there's a Florida state law that currently exists that the HOA cannot prohibit you from putting solar panels on your roof. Maybe they can tweak the system, whatever. My house has a lot of angles in the roof, which makes it look kind of cool, but I also know that re-roofing is very expensive when it's complicated. And of course, the possibility of leaks increases every time you have a bend or a curve and it's not just straight roof. The other thing that's unfortunate for my sake is that a generous portion of the roof that faces south, and the back of the house is directly south, they're already on the roofing shingles is a, I guess, passive, active solar heater for the water in the pool. So there's a pump that pushes the water up onto the roof, and then it flows through this big black plasticky mesh thing and gets warmed up and then returns to the pool. So you don't have to use electricity to heat the pool. And according to the previous homeowners, that works very well for like 10 to 11 months out of the 12. But, in December and January, the pool might be kind of chilly to hop into. So one of my questions, and I don't know the answer to this, if somebody knows, let me know. But if I take down that system to heat the hot water and put up solar panels, would the solar panels create more energy to be able to run a pool heater? Or would I be better off to leave the water heating panels there and put more solar panels facing east or west? I don't know. I don't know the math on that. I know how the solar panels work pretty well. I have to figure out how much energy they would create. I'm assuming in the middle of Florida, it's going to create more than in the Chicago suburbs. So, but how much more? 10%? I'm thinking between shifting from all east and west, which is my current house in the Chicagoland, to a generous portion facing south in Orlando, that I'm going to get 20 to 40% more power for the same size system. If anyone has any input on that, I'd love to hear it. Of course, my email is phil@Polaris Financial Planning. But I also am very curious about the very specific idea. Has anyone ever done the math or done the comparison or can find a website that compares the differences between I don't know what to call it. I'll call it a passive water heating system for the pool versus solar panels that will make electricity year round, and that can be used to offset the electricity used to heat the pool. And of course, I'd probably have to buy an actual pool heater, and I would save the little bit of money from the pump that has to push the water up onto the roof so it can be heated. So I don't know what the math on that is, and it might just be a convenience thing, because if I have an actual pool heater, I can set the temperature, and it doesn't matter if it's sunny or not sunny. It doesn't matter if it's August. Well, in July and August, the pool might get warmer than you want just from its own radiant heat. And if that's the case, if it's just getting warm because the sun is warming it up directly, the pool, then during that time frame, the devices on my roof to heat water are not being used, because it won't run and heat the pool when the pool is already above the set temperature. So am I losing all of that electricity? I don't know. I'm just rambling here. So things to think about. In the new house, of course, I've been slowly meeting the neighbors. Everybody seems wonderful, so that's kind of nice. We do have to deal with an HOA, Homeowners Association, which many fine listeners, and you know who you are, told me I wouldn't like dealing with an HOA. I assumed that I wouldn't, but we already got a warning letter. Apparently, they have decided that they can see our garbage can from the street. The funny thing is, you can't see it in front of my house because there's bushes. But if you go over one full house, maybe 1.5 houses over, and look at just the right angle, where it's not blocked by the neighbor's house and it's not blocked by the bushes, if you look real close, you can see the garbage can. And one of my neighbors said that they just hired a new company to facilitate all the rules and make sure everybody's following them. And his suggestion was, which is what we did, we put it in the garage, the trash and recycling can, put them in the garage, and that way when they come back around in a few weeks or a few months to see if we fixed it, it will be fixed, and then maybe we can just put them back out there because now they're on something else. So we'll see how that happens. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put up several feet, 5 or 6 feet of fence. So it would need a post near the house, one that's far enough away to put a door on, and then maybe like 6 or 8 feet of fence around that, or buy another bush that's fully grown and pay someone to put it in. I don't know. It's the silly little rules. But anyway, I'll learn more about that as we go. So I'm going to wrap up the introduction. We'll take a quick break, and we're going to learn about how to get started investing if you don't have a lot of money, and how to kind of manage modifying your portfolio to your plan, whatever that is, and things to think about and consider. So don't go anywhere.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
My name is Annie Drian, and I'm founder of Cosmos Studios and an honored to have been the longtime collaborator of Carl Sagan. And I'd like to say that I think it's just the opposite of what you're saying from my perspective, humbly. One is that I think that science tolerates the unknown in a way that religion doesn't. My argument is not with people who search for God. My argument is with people who feel that our understanding of God is completed. And those are the people who make so much of our existence on this planet such a hell, because they really think that they have the right to kill other people, to hurt them, because of what they understand God's will to be. That's a very destructive thing. So science is, the whole methodology of science is saying that we are not permitted these absolute truths that religion pretends to have, that we do not know the answer to these questions, and not only that, but the little that we think we do know, if you can prove us wrong, we'll give you our highest reward. And that's part of the methodology. That's part of the whole functioning of the system itself. So yes, in answer to what Joan was saying earlier, Scientists do terrible things. Scientists have biases. Religious people do terrible things, and they have biases. But absolutely intrinsic to the whole the methodology of science, is that error-correcting mechanism, which says we must never lose sight of that. That's not in religion. That's not present at all. Talk about humble. It's the fact that we do science and that we can bring ourselves to see that little tiny earth in Carolyn's presentation. That is humility. What science has done for us spiritually is that it has been the only thing that I know of that has compelled us to wean ourselves of our infantile need for centrality. And that was present, that is very much the essence of so many religious formulations of where we come from, why we came to be. It's the sign of mental health, that we can bear to think that this planet was perfectly fine for 4.5 billion years without us. That cosmic evolution goes on for 13.5 billion years before we even get here. How long have we been in science? How long have we systematically been looking at nature? Not even 400 years. And yet science gets us out to Enceladus. It takes us out of the solar system. It enables us to wean ourselves of that spiritual narcissism which compelled us to be at the center of everything. So when it comes to humility, when it comes to a tolerance for ambiguity and for the unknown, I think science worships the unknown. I think scientists are most comfortable in that place of not knowing. And that's where they live. And that's the great strength of science. So I would respectfully disagree.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. This Investing Skeptically segment is on investing with next to no money. I mean, if you have no money, well, you're not investing. But after doing the complete Polaris plan and 6 different show segments over almost 2 months, and all the detail and all of that, I did get quite a few wonderful emails, a few different topics, but one of the most common ones was, well, Phil, what does someone do if they don't have basically a fuck ton of money to invest in 20-something different mutual funds? And of course, that was the full blown out plan. I don't know, probably best for someone that has 500,000 or more. Maybe you could do it with a little bit less, but it becomes a more of a challenge because the smaller portions in the portfolio, some of those Vanguard funds require $3,000. So you don't want to do it under a couple $100,000, I don't think. But anyway, so this segment is what to do if you have very little money. Where can you invest? And the most important thing, I think, especially if you're starting, learn about investing. Read those books that I recommend and start simple. Just start. If you have at least $1,000, you can open up an account at Vanguard. And I would suggest the total, the target retirement funds, like 2055, 2060, whenever your retirement might be. If you get the 2060 versus the 2065, there's really very little difference. The only thing that I would have maybe a problem with that is that it's going to have even 20, 30, 40 years out, a small portion in bonds, which is not going to kill you, but your performance is going to be a little bit lower than if you were just straight up stock. The problem with investing at Vanguard, if you don't have $1,000 or if you don't have $3,000, almost every fund that they have is now out of your reach, I guess. So if you wanted to, you could start, and which is why these companies do it. Fidelity, I think, Schwab, maybe a couple other places have something like a total stock market index fund that you could open up with nothing, or you could start investing in with next to nothing. So now I have to correct my own misuse of the language. you can have an account and then own funds inside of the account. So you're not really opening up the fund. You're opening up an account. You add money to the account. You link it to your bank, just like the fancy schmancy apps that are advertised to you all the time, which I don't really like. And I've done segments on them before, and some of them have different reasons why I don't like them. But you can just link an account at Fidelity to your bank account and send $50 a month if that's all you've got. When you get to $1,000, well, actually, when you get to $50, you can start with the Fidelity Total Stock Market, which has a $0 entry. And the reason they do that is in part to compete with Vanguard. And in part, if you open up your account there, you might stay there for a very long time and invest more and more money. Smart business sense. It's like putting eggs and milk in the back of the grocery store. You just came in for a gallon of milk, but you got to walk by all this really cool stuff. Now, once you get to $3,000 at Vanguard, the world opens up. Maybe opens up too much, but you can get something like the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. You can get the Vanguard Total, I think it's the Total Global Index. Just kind of doing this off the top of my head here, so you'll have to look up the symbols. But that way you can invest in virtually all stock in the U.S. with the Total Stock Market Index, or mostly all stocks in the world. Of course, your ownership is infinitesimally small, but you're investing. That's the point that you want to start. And just to be clear, and I've said this many times before, the really big problem with investing with $3,000 is that you only have $3,000. The problem you need to focus on is not getting the absolute best investment, although you don't want to get screwed, so you still need to pay attention. But the biggest thing you need to do is get more money. How you do that, that's a challenge. That's a real challenge. When people call me and say, I don't make much money, what can I do to make more money? I don't know. That's not really my area of expertise. But the one thing that pops into my head is find something that you can do that not everybody else can do. That means going and getting some kind of certificate to do welding. Not everybody can do welding. If it means becoming a teacher, not everybody can become a teacher. Although in our current society, maybe that's not a good solution because teacher pay is for shit. Become a nurse, go to nursing school, find something that you can learn about, you can do, something that you know that not everybody else can do. And then you might be in a better position to leverage or negotiate or ask for more money. Or maybe the jobs in that field just provide more money. Anyway, I digress. So $3,000, you can do a whole lot of things. Now, when you get to $20,000, my generally historical reference or recommendation for someone in the United States, for someone who's not near retirement, is that you want to have 30% or more in the total international stock index and 70% in the total stock market, U.S. stock market. You could make that 35-65. It's not going to bother me. And you could buy into one of them. I would start with the U.S. total stock market index and then start adding to the international fund, minimum, I think, of $3,000 until you get the balance right. Now, keep it in mind, it's a plan. You don't have to have the exact dollar amount. If your portfolio is $29.71 or $31.69, you don't have to go in and tweak it that day, that month, or even that year. It's just, kind of a guide, a way of thinking about where your portfolio is allocated. And at $20,000, especially if you can start with something like $20,000, what you could do is put the 30% in the total international stock index, which out of $20,000 would be about $6,000. And then instead of buying the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, you could buy the large cap fund and the large cap growth and large cap value. Each of those is $3,000 to get into. And with a little luck, you find yourself in a position where you can add some money. And each time you get to $3,000, you might be able to buy the mid cap growth, the mid cap value, the small cap growth, the small cap value, that kind of thing, to work your way up to the plan. It also would not bother me if you just had total U.S. stock market and total international, and you just kept adding money to them until you got to 50,000 or even 100,000. Again, if you keep it simple, maybe you're more likely to follow it and just keep doing that. You can make it a little bit more complicated. Got a couple of emails from listeners that made that suggestion that I was just talking about, where you can add money to each new position when you have an additional $3,000. That works. That's okay. It's going to be hard to do the rebalancing because, if one of the funds makes 5 or 10% more than another fund, 10% more out of 3,000 is $300. I wouldn't make an adjustment for that. I wouldn't make an adjustment for 500 or 1,000. Again, the thing that you really need to focus on and spend your time on is trying to figure out how to make more money or spend less money if you're already making good money and it just seems to disappear. When you get to 50,000 or more, you can pull out 5 to 10% for the Vanguard Real Estate Fund, and then you can do 50-50 in domestic U.S. S&P 500, or those two large cap funds, growth and value, and then the rest can go in the extended market or in the 4 different funds that I recommend, and of course, something like 30-35% in international. So you can start to get more elaborate at $50,000. And of course, over 100,000, you could have the 6 U.S. funds, and you could start to get a little more creative in international, where you add the European index, you add the Pacific index. And again, I think all of those you can do with 3,000. But if you're really beginning in $1,000, $5,000, nothing wrong with the total stock market index. Another question people have asked is that, well, if I'm doing this in a taxable account, well, won't I have to pay capital gains when I make a trade? Yeah, you would. And that might be a good argument for not selling what you've already bought, but just adding to it. So those are things to think about. Another common question I got from people, which ties into this whole tax thing, is, Phil, if someone hires you and has a whole bunch of mutual funds and stocks that are in a taxable account, how do you transition them from that taxable account, or inside of that taxable account, to a new taxable account or to the positions that I recommend? Do you just sell everything, go to 100% cash, pay the taxes that you're going to have to pay, kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid, and then put it in a better portfolio? Or is there something more strategic, or do I use some kind of clever strategery to get to where I want to go? Well, I often look at the plan as a place that I want to get to and follow in time. That in time may be today, especially if you have cash and you want to invest in something. In time might be a year or 2 or 3 or longer. So it kind of depends. So if someone were to hire me, let's say they had $1 million, which right now they can't hire me, but if they had $1 million and it was all in a taxable account, and the funds that they had were something like the super shitty funds that I talk about from time to time, I would be really tempted to sell them all, rip off the Band-Aid, and put it into the more efficient index funds that have much lower costs, lower tax consequences going forward, lower expense ratios, better returns. But one has to think about the tax involved. Now, if you're lucky, unlucky, if you're unlucky, those super shitty funds in the last several years haven't really made you much money. And we are now in late summer of 2022. The market's down materially, maybe significantly, 15, 20%. Might be a good time to rip off the Band-Aid and pay whatever taxes you might owe. If you've owned those investments more than a year and a day or more, you're likely going to pay capital gains on the gains. So again, let's say you started with $500,000 and now 10 years later, 12 years later, you have $1 million. Your gains are $500,000. If you are in the 15% capital gains tax bracket, that $500,000 might have $75,000 of tax responsibility. So think about that before you do anything rash. Look at what you own. Are there some things that stick out in your mind as being the farthest from what the plan is, what your plan is? It can be my plan. You can copy or emulate or closely follow that. You can have your own plan. The important part is having a plan and then following the plan. So you're trying to take emotion out of all of this. So if in that million you have $300,000 in one single stock, which is 30% of your portfolio, I see that as a big problem. And so that would be something near the top of my list to take action on. If you did not know, you can go look at the lots, LOTS, plural. It's a lot. It's a stock lot. You bought 10 shares here, 50 shares there, 100 shares there, or you got them from your employer, from a previous job, however you got them. With a little luck, you can see the lots that you have purchased over time. Some of those purchases you may have made at a higher price. So if it's closer to today's price, your long-term gain on those stocks might not be that much. So you don't necessarily have to go from 30% in one stock to 5% in one stock, or even 0%. And my general guideline is no more than 5% in one stock. If you really love it and you think you know what you're doing and you really think this company has a future potential, 10%. But you don't want to be in the position where 50 or 80% of your money is in one stock, and that happens to be the company you work for, because if they go bankrupt, not only do you lose your job, but your entire portfolio. So we're trying to mitigate risks, not eliminate it, but have reasonable amounts of risk. So if you have materially more than 5%, definitely if it's more than 10% in a specific stock, you might want to take a look at that and see if you have the details of the lots and the prices they were purchased at. Maybe you can sell half of the portfolio and get yourself from 30% in that one stock to 15% in that one stock, and pick the shares that have been bought probably more recently, or at least the ones for a higher price, higher purchase price, because then your gain is smaller. So you can accomplish half of the mission of selling 30% of the stock and had minimal tax consequences. I hope that makes sense. You're trying to balance out the cost. If you have mutual funds or stocks that have done poorly and or lost money, that's easy. That's really easy in a taxable account. You just sell all of them, and the losses will help offset the things that hopefully had gains. I mean, if everything is down since you bought it, rip the Band-Aid off. If everything is down and you don't want to own any of this stuff anymore, you can rip the Band-Aid off. Just be prepared for the pending tax bill. So if you own too much in one stock, think about how to reduce that in some way. It doesn't have to be 100% reduction. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be this year. If you have a really high income, or if you are married and have two pretty good incomes, your capital gains tax rate can go from 15% to 20%. And it would not be unreasonable to think, okay, let me do some this year, and then I can do some more next year. And since we are in September of 2022, you could sell some things in September of 22 and then do it again in January of 23. And that way you might be able to keep your tax consequences a little bit smaller, from 15% to 20%. There's also, if you make enough money, not only 20%, but an extra tax just because it's 3.8%. So you can pay 23.8% long-term capital gains. One of the things to keep in mind is long-term capital gains of stock appreciation in a taxable account. You are going to pay that tax one day or another. It will happen. The only practical ways that I can think of avoiding that tax, one, die. That's not really a good choice. It's not a good option for anybody who's listening, and even for people who aren't listening. Or you can gift the money. So if you happen to have more money than you think you're going to need in retirement, whether that's today or in the future, you can give away some of the money, gift it to somebody that has a much lower tax bracket. Now, you've avoided the tax for yourself, and you've created a tax bill for somebody else, but in net, the tax bill might be, or could be, or likely would be smaller if you're giving the money to somebody who is usually younger or makes a lot less than you. Of course, the problem for you might be Now you don't have that money. So, what's important to you? So something else to think about. And again, it doesn't even have to be done not only in 1 year or in 2 years, you could do it in 3 years. But you can look at item by item if you have the cost basis detail, and any good brokerage account will have that information. If you don't know where to find that information, call the company that you have your accounts with. They will help you find that information or get it to you or something. And you can do a partial adjustment in 22, a little bit more in 23, a little bit more in 25, 24, and then the rest in 25. If you have funds that are pretty good, especially if the taxable gains are really high, you can keep that investment. So as an example, if you want to use the 6 different U.S. stock funds that I recommend, you don't have to have all of your money in those 6 funds specifically. So if half of your U.S. investment is in the large cap growth and large cap value, and you have $30,000 in the S&P 500 index, leave it alone. You can do that, and then you can adjust with the large cap growth and the large cap value without selling your positions in the S&P 500 index fund. Of course, another way you could possibly adjust is within your 401k, 403b, even IRAs and Roth IRAs, any accounts that are qualified versus non-qualified. Qualified for favorable tax treatment, you can make the adjustments there. So if your taxable account has too much large cap and not enough small cap, you can always make it that you have more small cap in an account where you're not going to create a tax bill for yourself, at least not now. So those are different things. Of course, if you have questions, you can send me an email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. And of course, you can, and you probably should, if you have anything more than a basic tax situation, hire an accountant, and you can sit down with them outside of tax season. So the middle of the summer, the fall, just not, March and April at the beginning of the year when they're doing everyone's taxes. Sit down with them and ask them what you should do. Pay them for their time and their expertise and how to avoid taxes. And, just take your time. It doesn't have to be solved in one day. For some people, that's the way to go. For a lot of people, it makes more sense to be strategic and get rid of the shittiest things first. And you can make a tiers or a list. Here are the things that I want to get rid of first, and just work your way towards that better portfolio, that better plan that you have created. So I hope this helps.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Pace e lunga vita.
Lunga vita e prosperità.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. Welcome back, everybody. And as I promised, today we have a special guest, Helen Green. She is an RFR ambassador. Helen, how are you today?
Good. And I want to say thank you, Phil, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. But what is RFR?
So Recovering from Religion is an organization that helps people who are dealing with issues of doubt and non-belief. We are a 501c3 charity, and basically Dr. Ray got an idea inspired by a conversation he had at IHOP, and that grew into the organization we are now, basically talking to people about doubt and dealing with those issues that come up when you're brought up in religious structures. So if you're struggling with those issues, you can call or chat in to either our website or call our phone line, which is at 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT. And a trained agent is there just to listen and offer emotional support and resources to you when you're dealing with those issues of doubt and non-belief.
Excellent. Did you say IHOP?
Yeah, he started off as it was a conversation he had at an IHOP with
Now, you
other
mean
people that
International House of Pancakes.
or prayer.
Fair enough. So when someone wants to leave religion, why don't they just leave? Isn't it that simple?
Ideally, you would think it would be. You would think that people would be able to know their own minds and to just walk away from religious structures. But for those of us that have left those structures, there's a lot of indoctrination that goes into it. And your brain is literally rewired to have this magical thinking, to believe things that are unprovable because of the way that those religious structures indoctrinate people, especially when you're a child and you don't have the ability to reason yet and make sense of the world and how it actually is, and especially if you're told that if you don't believe in this particular deity, like something horrible is going to happen to you after you die. Either you're going to burn in hell or you won't reincarnate to the next plane or whatever bullshit that you're taught. That is a terrifying thing, especially if you're teaching that to small children and you grow up and that is reinforced every week when you go to church over and over again. And that's a trauma that people actually have to wrestle with and deal with as they get older. Some people, it varies to certain degrees. They just have some quibbles, that they need to work out, and they'll become more educated, or, they'll talk to someone that's a supportive person that is open to them, questioning things and work those things out on their own. But if you're, especially in the more fundamentalist religions where it's almost very cult-like, or it is a cult, that undoing that brainwashing can be a very long, arduous process. So we have an appreciation for people that working with RFR. I've heard some very harrowing stories, very heartbreaking stories. Over the past few years, I've talked to people that have really been dealing with this issue. And if it was really easy, we wouldn't, our organization would not exist, basically. So, and we want to be able to be that stepping stone for the people that do need our help.
Yeah, fair enough. So Is it open to all ages?
Yes. Well, any age can call or contact us, but like we have an online community, for example, that you have to be invited into. And our cutoff point for that is about like 15, 16 years old, because we do get into more adult conversations around like sexuality. And also it's also a matter, we want to make sure that people that join our community are doing so, doing it safely.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to have those more difficult conversations, because we want to make that place a safe place as much as possible for people to connect and talk to other people that are going through this journey. And we don't want to put vulnerable groups into our community.
Absolutely. If only religions waited till kids were adults.
Right?
That'd make the world a lot better place, I think.
Definitely.
So you have a phone number. What is that?
It is 184-I-DOUBT-IT. And that you can call, and you'll be connected with an agent. We're available 24/7. You can also chat in on the website at recoveringfromreligion.org. And basically, an agent will be there that is trained just to listen and offer resources and give emotional support. I do want to emphasize that we are not trained psychologists. We are just listening ears of people that really want to help others. But if you do need professional psychiatric care beyond what we can offer, like if you're dealing with religious trauma syndrome and that requires more mental health help than what we can give, you can contact the Secular Therapy Project and be connected with a psychologist that is scientifically trained to help dealing with people with certain issues. But we don't want to offer that because that is not our job.
Sure.
You know?
But the people answering the phone have some training. They're not just some idiot like me.
Right. Yeah. We don't, it's not just some rando that you're going to talk to.
Right.
We've all been trained on having effective communication. Basically, the way I describe it is like a lot of street epistemology, which we've been trained to do with emotional support underneath. Because
Fair enough.
the idea is that unlike religion where you're told what to believe, we want to tell you how to, like, help you work through how to think about things.
Yeah, I was just going to get to the next leading question is, you're not there to deconvert people.
No, we have to, because unlike religion, we don't want to tell people you should be, an atheist now, or you should do this. That's religion's job. That's religion's job to tell you what to do. We trust that the people that are contacting us are smart, sympathetic people that are just trying to work things out, and we want to trust them that they have their own minds and they will be able to work this out on their own. We're just posing questions to them on things that they haven't considered before, or we word things for them to think about things a little bit differently previously, what they were taught. And that's the wall that they're usually hitting, that they're coming up against new information and they don't know how to square it with the things that they've been taught with before. So we kind of help them through that process of learning to square those things. And it's okay, and especially getting okay with questioning. That it is okay to ask questions. It is okay to doubt. It is okay to trust yourself to find out the information on your own.
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of funny. I had someone tell me today that we shouldn't use the Bible to justify things. And I thought, wow, if only I lived in a world like that.
Right? Do you have any problems that we would solve if we didn't rely on a book that was written 2,000 years ago about people not living in the modern world, wrote for morals and guidance? I think that'd be very nice.
Absolutely. Do you ever have anyone that calls that maybe is a little concerned or afraid that they'll get outed?
Yes. So, like, for example, we always try to make sure the person is safe. So another thing you can do, like, let's say you want to call in, but let's say you live in a household where any religious pushback would be detrimental. Like, you might even be kicked out of your home. You can always schedule a chat with one of the agents and they will call you back, for a time that's more safe or convenient for you. also, too, for our friends that are living in very extreme countries, especially in the Middle East, we encourage them to use a VPN. So they are anonymous. So this way, the people in those countries can track them and their user traffic of which websites, which phone calls that they're doing. We want to make sure they're safe as well, because there is a lot of very extreme people that you are doing. Just questioning could put yourself into danger, and we want to reduce harm as much as possible. So we encourage people that may not feel safe and do want to contact us. There are ways to contact us that's going to be safe for you. So this way we feel, that you can talk to us and not have any pushback or danger coming to you, because it is a reality, and that's something that we take into consideration.
Absolutely. Now, we've talked about the phone number, and let's just refresh other avenues: text, computer, email.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And those are the main ways that you can get in contact with us. Also, too, we do a podcast every Monday evening.
Okay.
And that's at and that is like a podcast that we do. We record it for YouTube. We're a little bit behind on the YouTube videos because we do edit those, but those get uploaded onto podcast forums before the actual videos come out, and those come up pretty quick, so you can listen to it on like Apple or Spotify or Spreaker, like wherever you get your podcasts. You just go to the RFRX podcast. But a good thing about those is that we have hangouts after the actual podcast for people that join us via our Zoom link for those, and you get to meet with other people. Those ways to connect with other people that are part of the organization's volunteers and people that are going through the process. Also, as well, we have online support groups that are virtual. I do the virtual support group on the first Sundays of each month, and that's about an hour to an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting of people that are struggling with doubt and non-belief in specific religious issues. We also have like a woman's only support group. We have a LGBTQ support group that we just launched. Also, these are also all by city and country. So if you live in Australia, you live in the United States, just go to our meetup, go to Recovering from Religion, and you'll find a support group that's online that you can join and for your city or the one that's closest to you. And all the times of those groups will be listed and how you can join them via the Zoom link. Also, too, if, like, let's say you live in Florida, but due to time, there is a group in Philly that is more convenient for you. You can just join that group. You don't have to join the one specifically for your city, because this was originally designed before the pandemic. A lot of people were meeting in person, and that now some of the groups are going back into meeting in person, but because of the pandemic, a lot of the things have been online.
Yeah,
so that's another way you can get support through RFR, and you don't need to join the chat line to do that. You can just join a group via the meetup. Almost
anyone, any adult can call, just talk to somebody. It's not professional help, but it's better than just talking to some random person. And maybe you can lead them to groups or meetings where they can join and maybe share some of their feelings and help get it out a little bit.
And that's the goal, because we know that the more that people talk about these issues, and especially that it's okay to question, because I think, and any structure, religious or otherwise, that tells you it's not okay to question things. It's not okay to question authority. It's not okay to think about the world differently. It's not okay to seek out new information. Those are repressive structures. And we don't want people to be a part of repressive structures, because it usually leads to very bad things when you're taught that you can't trust yourself. You can't trust your ability to, listen to the voice inside of you that says, this seems wrong. Or be a part of structures where you let horrible things just slide because you're a part of that group. Those are, because if you belong to a group that puts your morals into questions, and also to your ability to question things about the actual reality of the world and how people really are, and also getting used to diversity, that people that don't think the way that you do, that have different perspectives, and learn to be comfortable with that, it leads to a lot of bad things. We see it over and over again. And I think it's really important for people to know that they can trust themselves, and it's okay to listen to the voice that's going, that doesn't seem right. Like, listen to that voice. And also get support along the way, get the help, because nobody lives on an island, and we all have to kind of help each other and take care of each other, however that manifests as it is. So if we can be, some of the people that are like, hey, you know what? Maybe your fear of hell is unjustified. Maybe you were told some bullshit. Maybe, you should think about this, a little bit more deeply, and deal with the fear that you're feeling, confront it, and also is the fear legitimate and is it justified?
Absolutely.
Or did
Helen,
somebody put that onto you?
Yeah, no doubt about it. The whole idea of you're a bad person and sin and hell, I think are counterproductive to a productive citizen, but that's me.
Well, I would agree with you.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Tell us once again all the places people can find RFR.
So, again, if you want to, for example, join one of our online support groups, either go to meetup.com or Eventbrite. Both of all of our support groups are listed on there. You just find what city you're in, and there is a link. Also, too, you can, if you're not comfortable talking on the phone and we refer to chat-in, just go to recoveringfromreligion.org, and it will talk with an agent, and it will connect you there. Or you can call 1-84-I-DOUBT-IT, talk live to an agent if at that moment, or you can also schedule a call via the website as well for a time that's convenient for you. You can also, if you're interested on specific topics regarding religion or mental health, you can join, you can follow our podcast, you can join the YouTube channel at RFRX, or also too, you can listen on podcasts as well. And that's more of a supplement to what we do, because we want to provide more mental and health education and more religious education and how these structures work and how people got out of these structures. And because we found, like, for example, we have an online community on Slack. You have to be invited by an agent to join the community. So, but like, let's say you're from a particular background, like Jehovah's Witness, Catholic, Muslim, fundamentalist Christianity. You are a queer person. So anybody that's part of these religious structures or social structures can join our online community and connect with people that are going through the deconversion process or have gone through it, and are agents, and have conversations about your experiences leaving the faith or where you are in that process, and get support, maybe a little bit of advice on how to navigate those things. I do want to also say too, for as far as us as agents, we don't give advice. We feel that people know their own lives and how they're navigating them. So don't expect us to tell you what to do. We want you to be able to, we're just giving you tools to figure out what you should do. Like, we're just giving you tools in your toolbox, and ways that, can help you deal with a certain situation. But because we can't know anyone's particular situation except for our own particulars, we're not going to give you advice on, like, how to leave, like, a Jehovah's Witness cult. Like, we can't give that advice because we're not living it. So, but we do want to help people get some tools. So getting out of those structures or dealing with certain issues of doubt or non-belief or something that just isn't squaring. We're just helping people get a tool in their toolbox. Even if they don't leave religion, like let's say they stay in because of, family obligations, or they really like the community that they're a part of, because there are plenty of people that are non-believers sitting in pews every Sunday, but they stay for a variety of different reasons. Some of them good, and some of them because if they leave, the whole structure of their lives will coming down.
Fair enough.
So,
well, Helen, forgive me. We're getting long in the interview, and I want to thank you so much for coming on and taking time and helping the listeners know what some choices are.
Yes, and I really appreciate that. I'm sorry I'm getting a little bit long-winded. I do want to mention one of the new things that we're doing, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk today. We do have a reproductive rights task force that we're building. This is another addition to the things that we're doing at Recovering from Religion, because when Roe versus Wade got turned over a few months ago, we were like, well, this sucks. What are we going to do? And we're trying to partner with other secular organizations. We're trying to get as much resources available to people, not only who want to talk about this issue and work through, the moral ramifications, all those things that you're struggling with when you're dealing with this certain topic, because it's very present in people's minds right now. And also, abortion is a religious conversation, and it is a topic, and the way things are being structured right now is based on religious grounds, which is a bunch of bullshit. But there are real people that are dealing with those issues, and we want to help people that are living in states where abortion's been banned or very limited. We want to help them, seek, reproductive health care and what the laws are and how they can do it safely, and also people that want to get involved, that they want to become activists, they want to use their voice. We want to point them in the right directions as well. So that's the new thing that we're doing on top of all the other stuff that we're doing at Recovering from Religion.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Helen. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much, Phil, and I really appreciate you having me on, and for us to get this message out and being a voice in the community and being supportive to us. It is deeply appreciated.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate you listening to the show. If you like the show, you can go leave a 5-star review. Of course, you can share the show. That sounds funny. Share the show with a friend and have them listen, and maybe it helps them in some way. And we've already covered so much in this episode that I don't want to get too long-winded here, but just kind of thinking out loud of the things that one has to do with a new house, or if you're moving. And it's taking some time, but we're making progress. My Florida office is coming together, so that's nice. I might be able to record segments in both locations, and you won't be able to tell the difference because I bought mostly duplicate equipment. I did have some trouble with finding a new sound mixer, and now instead of a sound mixer, I have a control panel that's fancy schmancy. I'm still trying to learn all of the details, so hopefully any recordings made with that sound just like what I used to make or still will make from time to time in Chicago. But I'm going to wrap up. Again, I will be in Vegas, and then I think it's San Antonio. Oh my God, I'll have to look that up for the next episode for the CSI-Con, Center for Inquiry, and the FFRF, Freedom from Religion Foundation conferences, which are back-to-back. So I'll be in Vegas and then Texas the following weekend, and I hope to see you at one of those events. You are welcome and invited to come up to me and say hello. I would love that very much. Until then, ciao.
Yeah, you know there ain't nothing that can stop our Lord. He's gonna rule forevermore. You know there ain't nothing that can stop our Lord. He's gonna rule forevermore.
I've got a God who's got my back when the devil is attacking. God's always in action, he's up there in heaven. When I come up short, I remember who's my Lord. I've got my armor on with the Bible as my sword. Devil's always attacking, he's always attacking. The devil's always attacking, he's always attacking. When my life is a disaster, I'm leaning on my Savior. When I'm in a bind, I know my God's a chain breaker. Jesus ain't a phony, he came down to save me. He suffered on a tree so that I could be redeemed. Devil's always attacking, he's always attacking. The devil's always attacking, he's always attacking. Yeah, you know there ain't nothing that can stop our Lord. He's gonna rule forevermore. You know there ain't nothing that can stop our Lord. He's gonna rule forevermore.
We're God's own children, adopted to his family. We'll be with him for all eternity. Said it once before that Jesus ain't a phony. 2,000 years ago he paid my debt on Calvary. God knows just cause he's got my back. I'm like a superhero, man, I don't fear no attack. Now I put all my faith in the one true Lord. Is gonna rule forever. Yeah,